If you're even just sort of into Overwatch, this week has been incredibly exciting. I don't think we've received this much information over such a short period of time in, ever. At least as far as I remember. We've gotten confirmation of a major shakeup in the game in the form of role queue, which will change the dynamics of Overwatch as we know it. We've gotten a huge load of balance changes currently into PTR, and a brand new hero who looks really cool. All within the last week. And in this video, we're going to be going over all of it. For those of you who aren't caught up with the news, I'll be quickly going over all the new stuff and what's been added to the game, and then going over my thoughts on all of it, because there's a lot to break down here, so I'll try to get through it all as quickly and concisely as I can. Of course, for anyone who is waiting, I promise the next video will be the second half of the power rankings. There was just too much that happened this week to not make a video about it. So, I'm sorry, it's coming soon, I promise. So let's start off by talking about the first piece of news that dropped. Role lock, role queue, 222, whatever you want to call it. The concept behind this change is pretty simple from a game standpoint. Instead of having an overall skill rating, you will now have 3. One for tank, one for damage, one for support. When you queue for a game, you'll pick which role you want to play, and you'll be matched into a game with 2 people of each role, which they cannot pick outside of. When this is implemented on live servers, every game will be forced 2-2-2. As far as gameplay goes, I'm actually a huge fan of this. I know that everyone has different perspectives when it comes to their Overwatch experience, but from my point of view, when I go into comp, I usually decide to just flex for whatever my team needs. You know, cause I'm a doormat. But as a tank main, I might not be doing as much for my team if I'm flexing on the DPS or support. Jeff actually mentioned this in his developer update when he said that he found out he's actually a full tier lower on support than he is on tank. Now, I can queue for tank, and I know for sure I will be playing tank in those games. Or, if I want to play DPS, I can queue for DPS and I'll be thrown into a bronze game where I belong. It's perfect! Only half sarcasm aside, it really does streamline the process, and from my experience, makes the game a lot better to play as a whole. No one wants to queue for DPS, but then just end up playing support because no one else wanted to switch. I do believe that it is a good move for the long-term health of the game. I can't imagine that it doesn't help from a balancing standpoint too. I mean, obviously the biggest example is Brigitte. Brigitte has more survivability than any DPS hero, can do a ton of healing if you keep Inspire up, not to mention her famous screw off button to stop any hero in its tracks. Do you see how difficult it is to convince players that it's worth playing DPS heroes over her, and all of the utility she offers? Now the balancing team can focus on balancing DPS heroes against DPS, and support with support, not DPS with supports. Now, I can't say I've ever balanced a game before, but this has to be easier, if for no other reason, because you don't have as many variables to worry about. Now, from an Overwatch League point of view, I don't love it as much, but I also think that it's necessary, and it's also met with some unfortunate timing. If 2-2 was implemented a month or so ago when we were still waist deep in the GOATS meta and when they started planning this, I'm sure it would have been much better received. But we just watched a team defy the GOATS meta all the way to a stage championship, utilizing some incredible Sombra, Pharah, Doomfist, and Widow play. Of course, role lock isn't just going to kill GOATS, but the triple and quad DPS comps too, which kinda sucks. As Overwatch League continues with its 2-2-2 lock going into stage 4, we'll always be left wondering what if. Would the meta have changed to include much more triple DPS comps, or would we have rebounded back to GOATS? We'll never know, and honestly, that's kinda sad. Will we be in bunker hell for the rest of the season instead? Maybe. It's really tough to deny the power behind that composition, but I don't expect 19 out of 20 teams to be playing at 24/7 like when GOATS was at its peak, so that's good. I hope to see more dive resurface as a result of this, but I think that's me being a little too wishful. Most likely, I see 4 comps reigning supreme. I think we'll be seeing a good amount of bunker moving forward, of course. I also think we'll be seeing some Genji Sombra dive, probably with an Ana too, so we can see some nano-boosted EMP'd blades. We also can swap out the Genji for a Pharah for teams that prefer it. I'm looking at you, Shanghai. And finally, this is at the bottom because I'm the least sure about it, but maybe we see some double sniper back? The one-hit potential of heroes like Widow and Hanzo will always be big in Overwatch. Maybe I just want to see Carpe pop off again, but I can see really highly skilled teams specializing in this comp and just controlling a game from long range. Lastly, and I'm not including this as part of the 4 because this is really just a theory crafting thing, I'm really liking the idea of McCree Hanzo right now. Pair McCree's buffed fire rate and Hanzo being Hanzo, and you have one of the best shield busting duos in the game. I'm hoping the fact that teams knowing about the lock for a while has allowed them to experiment and come up with more strategies than just go bunker wall. Now, moving on to the balance changes currently on the PTR, there are a whole lot of them. Firstly, let's talk about the global changes. They're increasing ultimate charge rate across the board, which I think is fine. 12% won't be super noticeable, and for something as integral to the game as ultimates, I like slowly bumping it up instead of all at once. Also, there was kind of an anti-CC update where basically slowing effects no longer stack. Like, say you're playing Rein and you're holding up your shield, a Mei gets behind your shield and starts to freeze you. In the live version, you would start to slow down immediately. However, now, say Reinhardt, when he holds up his shield, moves half as fast as he usually does. I don't actually know if this is true, it's just an estimate. Now, Reinhardt won't actually move any slower until the amount of slowness that Mei is applying to him exceeds the amount that he's already slowed just by holding up his shield. This gives Rein a little bit more time to react before he gets impaired, which is good. Then there's this bug fix with beam weapons that I didn't even know existed, so okay, if it's a bug, then great. So for the hero-specific changes, I'm going to start off with the smaller things, hit on those, and work my way up to Brigitte, which is basically a total rework. So firstly, Doomfist. Melee no longer pauses ammo reload. I like this change a lot, I can't see it being anything but good. This is the latest iteration of small quality of life updates in order to make playing certain heroes feel smoother. Before this, it was Orisa being able to shoot while deploying her shield, and Hammond being able to shield while grappling. Good stuff. They also fixed a handful of bugs, which are nice. Tracer got a buff to her pulse bomb, and now does 350 damage. Not a huge change, but definitely a welcome one. Squishies you would kill will still die, and tanks will feel it a little more. It'll also help her burst through Brigitte armor. Ashe can reload a little faster, raising her DPS a little. That's cool. Hack was changed to be a little less oppressive, which is nice. Sim has some changes to her teleporter. This is also seems like mostly quality of life stuff. Now it lasts forever and goes farther, but it has the longer cooldown, so that's all fine. Hanzo now has one less Storm Arrow. I can't help but feel kind of iffy about this change, as Storm Arrow was one of the best shield breakers in the game, but I can understand how oppressive it can be as an ability. Speaking of shields, Orisa is receiving a 1-second nerf to her cooldown time on her shield. In a game like Overwatch, that extra second of shield downtime could actually be huge, so a slight nerf to Bunker. I don't expect it to change too much about that meta though. Rein's new passive. Yes, love it. Rein is a big dude in a giant suit of armor. He should not be displaced as much as a 5'4" girl who can't weigh more than 120 pounds. Now, you can say the same about a lot of the other bigger heroes, but one step at a time here. Rein has been abused by CC way too much, and I'm glad they're finally giving him a tool to help with this. Wrecking Ball has had an adjustment to his ult. Basically, his minefield spreads over a larger area. Now, Hammond's ult has always been about area denial. I mean, that's what he yells when the mines come out, so him denying a larger area shouldn't be bad. However, obviously, now Hammond's ult doesn't have as much killing potential as it did before. I don't know, I'm gonna wait and see on this one. I think it's more of a change to how Hammond's ult is supposed to be used, rather than a buff or a nerf. Maybe the mines will need a small damage buff since they're more spread out now, but that's about it. Moira. Ew, I don't like this change. Moira's Fade can now be used even when she is stunned. Are you shattered? Just fade out of it. Slept? Use Fade. Brigitte stunned? Fade. You get it. I don't like this change because it takes arguably the easiest character in the entire game and makes her even easier. One of the only cool things you can do with Moira from my point of view is predicting when the shatter is coming, fading out of it, and then using your ult to keep your team up. Now you can just take the shatter and make the play anyways. It's one of 2 anti-CC cooldown abilities in the game, and it's the only one that you can use while stunned. No, Moira is not used much over the other supports in the game, and therefore she needs more utility to be useful. If we're trying to get to a balanced game here, that does need to happen, and I understand that. I just wish they could buff Moira in a way that didn't make her even easier than she already is. Because in the CC fest that Overwatch can be, Moira having a way to get out of it instantly could be really big, and it makes me really sad to think that the best Zen or Lucios in the world might be playing a lot of Moira soon. So this leaves us with Brigitte, who is getting a whole rework. With the role lock coming in, it seems like the devs are trying to get her to settle into a support role. Her barrier health was significantly reduced, and she now has 3 charges on her repair packs instead of just 1. Even with a slight decrease in healing per pack and the fact that it's over 2 seconds per use, the fact that she could do 360 healing in 6 seconds is crazy. That's 60 healing per second, it's faster than Mercy. Her Inspire passive reinforces this as well, doing more overall healing at the cost of her own survivability. Don't get me wrong, Brigitte is probably still the most survivable support hero, but it's much less now. Her rally now takes a little longer to charge, that's fine. Her whip shot is buffed, which is cool, and raises her peeling abilities, and her shield bash got a slight nerf, which I'm fine with. So overall, I like the Brigitte changes. It's not really a buff or a nerf, just a bit of a change to the role that she has in the roster. As of right now, I don't think she can do anything that Lucio can't do better, but I'm interested to see what people will do with this reworked version of Brig. I'm just glad that support players will be on her from now on. Now, before we move on to Overwatch's newest hero, if you're liking this video so far, I would be really appreciative if you would leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget the bell. I make videos on Overwatch, specializing in the Overwatch League, and if you'd watch them, that would just make me super happy. Next week is my top 10 power ranking, I swear, it's happening, I swear. Now, the new hero that has taken over everyone's attention the past few days, Sigma. Hey, do the thing! What? Who are you? What thing? You know, the thing! Oh. Sigma toes. Before I get into the character itself, I want to talk about the origin story trailer for him, because it was amazing. I loved it. Maybe it was a juxtaposition between fun, intelligent hamster built a spaceship to Earth and wants to learn as much as possible, to scientist driven insane by black hole experiment gone wrong, but can control gravity. Maybe it was the brilliant work of the voice actor for Sigma, Boris Heastand, expertly capturing the raw emotion that Sigma must have felt during his experiments and the aftermath. Maybe it was the theme song that they chose or made for Sigma, which is just as graceful as it is unsettling. It just all works, and it really sets the scene for what could be a great and interesting character, and I'm very excited to learn more about Sigma's place in Overwatch. Now, let's look at his character from a gameplay perspective. Sigma is a tank character. His primary fire are his hyperspheres. You shoot them 2 at a time, and direct hits with them do 60 damage each. They have a 20-meter radius by themselves, but you can also bounce them off walls and they explode, doing splash damage. So these things are kind of a mix of Pharah and Zenyatta's primary fires with a little bit of Junkrat. You can actually do a lot of damage if you can land a good portion of these things, but there's a lot of skill involved with hitting this projectile, which I think is great. Then we have his experimental barrier, which is basically just... Remember Symmetra 2.0's shield? It's a better version of that. It's bigger, it has more health, and you can stop it in place instead of it just going on forever. As far as I can tell, this is the most versatile shield in the game right now, and I'm really excited to see how people use it. You can throw it in front of you, behind you, above you to block Pharah, you can block off all sorts of different vantage points. People have already figured out that it moves at the same speed as a Rein charge, so you can protect your Reinhardt when he rushes in immediately like he always does, and I'm sure people will be figuring out more stuff soon. His kinetic grasp absorbs all projectiles in front of him and converts the damage into extra shields once it's over. This can also be used to negate ultimates, but Jeff said on stream that this is a glitch, Or maybe not, because he has a voice line and a kill feed icon when it happens, I don't know. If it is, its cooldown is too long to replace D.Va's defense matrix, but it's still an interesting piece of utility that he has. Sigma can get a maximum of 400 extra shields from this, which is obviously massive, but it works a lot like Genji's Deflect, where you really have to body block it. I think the jury is out on this one until I can see how easy it really is to get a lot of health with this ability. It could be really good or really bad depending on that, but ult eating is cool. Then we have Accretion. Sigma throws a rock at you. Okay, he gathers up a bunch of mass from the earth, shapes it into a ball, and then throws it at you, but that seems a lot of work as opposed to, you know, just picking up a rock and throwing it at you. This is a large, slow-moving projectile with a decent amount of charge time before it actually releases, making this ability really easy to dodge. However, if you land it, it does a good amount of damage and knocks the enemies on their butt like a mini Earth Shatter if you're far enough away. This is good CC. It takes a lot of skill and timing to land this thing, but if you do, you're rewarded with locking people in place for a second for a potential kill, and the enemy feels like they were outskilled instead of out M1'd. Looking at you, Brigitte. Finally, Sigma's ultimate, Gravitic Flux, in which he starts floating up into the air while he selects an area, and every enemy within the area gets pulled up into the air before being slammed back down. His ultimate does 50 damage when you lift a character in the air, and when they're slammed down, it does 50% of the character's max health. So Reinhardt will always take 250 damage from the slam, while Tracer will always take 75. Two interesting things from this ultimate. First of all, that portion where Sigma lifts everyone in the air just gives the rest of this team free reign to shoot at them. Maybe good for dealing with, I don't know, a bunch of people bunkered behind an Orisa shield? Secondly, if you don't do anything and just let the timer run out before you pick a spot, nothing actually happens. But during these 5 seconds, Sigma basically has full range of movement in the X, Y, and Z directions. I think he can still be shot while in the air like this, but this ult could just as easily be used as a repositioning tool rather than just a damaging one. Also, you can force people to C9 with it, which is really funny and also probably huge, and I'm not sure if it was intended to be like that, and maybe they'll fix it, maybe not, we'll just have to wait and see. There's a lot of different facets to this ult, and it could be used in many different ways, which makes Sigma a very interesting hero to me as far as gameplay. Now, is Sigma a meta breaker by any means? I don't think so. I'm not going to make any sweeping claims to his place in Overwatch's roster yet, because no one really knows that yet. We need more than a few days to really figure that out. However, I will say that his kit is very interesting. There's a lot more to it that initially meets the eye, and people who can really figure him out might be able to do some really cool things. Can you believe that all this stuff happened in such a short period of time? I am still in awe. This is a great time to be an Overwatch fan. Hopefully this video helped you digest the craziness that was the past week. What do you think of all these changes? Who in Overwatch League do you think is going to benefit from 222? I didn't even try to answer that. Every team has potential DPS carries. How about the balance changes in Sigma? Anything you love? Anything you're not excited about? Do you not agree with something I said? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video and want to see more, leave a like and subscribe. I make competitive Overwatch content, and I would be so happy if you took a little bit of time out of your day to watch it. Until next time though, that's all from me. Don't get tilted.